As Gloria was bringing roiling laughter up to speed, I led the rest of the gang out of the caverns and into the parking lot. There wasn't much to see in the caverns themselves. It was mostly dark, occasionally lit by some electric lantern whose batteries were running out. Although there was a generator keeping the most important and/or/dangerous part well lit. Although how anyone could sleep through that rust bucket's noise is beyond me. We nodded to the Bone Hour Guardians serving as parking lot security as we headed out into Quebec City's Carré du Ville towards the hotel. We had a meeting scheduled with one of their theurge, so we introduced ourselves to the Glasswalker Guardians who led us to one of the 2 floors reserved for Garou visitors. Those were heavily soundproofed and fortified, in cases of impromptu frenzies. One can never be too careful in a hotel full of regular humans, after all. We were brought to a set of rooms, free of charge, heyo, to wait until they were done analyzing the key. Apparently, they had only gotten it late last night and couldn't jump on it before taking appropriate security measures to protect their servers, which were an integral part of their spiritual network. Pun very much intended. While we waited, I asked one of their guardians, a chap called Benjamin, if he'd mind staying for a bit and getting Jane up to speed on the tribe. Oh, sure, he said, though it might be already too late to join us. We were clearly a little surprised by that, so he elaborated. Obviously, if Cockroach chooses you, he chooses you. That doesn't change, but typically, the tribe likes to do things a little differently when it comes to rites of passages. When we find a cub, or one of our own undergoes the first change, we have a trial by fire philosophy. Cubs are trained for about 48 hours, and then sent to the proverbial wolves right away. Boom, rite of passage, right then and there. If you pull it off, you have the wherewithal to be one of us. If not, you might be best joining another tribe. That's harsh, said Jane. Thankfully, he had enough of a sense of humor not to take it the wrong way. It seems like that, but Cockroach, that's our tribal patron, taught us to be all about adaptability. You need that trait to succeed among us, or we'd both be losing our time. Now, I'm not saying the other tribes aren't adaptable. I'm just saying that it's what defines us. Throughout history, we kept up with the times. We kept an eye on humanity and followed wherever they went. Our tribe has evolved into different things as times demanded us to be different. We started out as the warders of man, back when we were all about keeping humans safe from things that go bump in the night, and yes, even other werewolves. Later on, we became the Iron Riders, as technology became more prevalent, and as many Garou retreated to protect the forests. We were riding trains, hence Iron Riders. And I do have to say, if you'll allow me, exchanging gunfire with former cowboys in the Wild West must have been something else. That sounds exceedingly cool, Jane exclaimed, eyes wide. But hold on. Horace told me it was a misconception that werewolves did not go into cities and didn't evolve with the times. Why are you claiming that as a Glasswalker thing now? Fair enough. It's an attitude thing. Shadowlords and Silverfangs probably rode trains too, and I'm sure more than a few Fenrir warriors traded shots with Fomori bandits too. But we embraced it. Where the Black Furies and Fiannas and whatnot might use them, they also feared them. Technology is inherently of the Weaver, and yes, to build the rails, a lot of forests had to be cut down, which would threaten some cairns. The Industrial Revolution was arguably the moment when human society, for the first time, started being able to stand toe-to-toe against us. That made the other tribes wary, nervous. They didn't like that at all. Why the fuck would they? No one wants to see a cairn in danger. No one. But we're of a mind that technology ultimately brings more good than bad. We don't just use it, we embrace it. The Weaver is ascendant. Technology is not going anywhere. We can fight it and lose, or we can use it to help us fight. Imagine if technology could warn us in advance about an impending first change. Of all of us here, in this room, I'm willing to bet the majority of us would have given a lot to have a first change in a controlled environment. I don't need to know your stories. I see it in your eyes, cub. Those wounds are still fresh. So I'll move on to a less painful concept. Have you bloodied your claws yet? He asked Jane. Me? Yeah. On my first day, I yanked some dude's tongue out. It was several feet long. It was disgusting. And a few days ago, we fought Banes in the Umbra. So you've been in the field. You've seen battle. What if I told you you didn't have to? Imagine, in a future not so far away, imagine probes able to cross between worlds, scouting cairns so guardians could get some actual sleep once in a while. Imagine turning the tables on our enemies. Instead of humans encroaching on our lands, we could make sure they encroach on Black Spiral Dancer's territories instead. Make them lose their lands while keeping ours safe. Then we buy the lands or gain it in some merger or acquisition. Then we cleanse it and reclaim it for Gaia. Just like here, Jane said, putting it all together. Not the hive part, but the human part. Like, cairns in the wild have to be careful of humans disrupting the feng shui and whatnot, while you here can have humans on the sept because they were always there. You're able to hide among them, and the place itself is attuned to the modern world. If the hive is disrupted by humans, we don't care. It's a hive. And then if we rebuild it into a cairn, whatever it was before, now it would be a modern cairn too. A whole new thing we can shape into a place that can also hide in plain sight. Now you're catching up, grinned Benjamin. And that's just a couple of ideas. That's just a start. We could get ways to scan for Fomori and Black Spiral Dancers. We could have them show up on a freaking GPS. There's so much technology can do for us if we just let it. Seems limitless, Jane said. No, actually there is a limit, Benjamin immediately intoned. We gave him a bit of a look, as I wasn't sure if he was going to go there, but yeah, sure enough he did go there. Just because we see the advantages doesn't mean we don't understand that the Weaver is mad and dangerous. We use the Weaver's tools to our advantage, but we must always make sure that the Weaver does not use us as a tool in her plans. We are servants of Gaia, not the Weaver or any other member of the Triad, and that must always be so. There were some among us who called themselves the Cyber Dogs. They went too far. Some cut off their own limbs to replace them with cybernetic implants, bringing the Weaver into themselves. Worse, they stopped following Gaia. Instead of dealing with Gangan spirits and relying on them in their rights and paying them proper respect, they did all that with Weaver spirits instead. In 1999, one of ours, Elizabeth Jean Reader, began a movement to expose them, looking for a reasonable outcome. Instead, it led to a bloody internal war that changed the balance of power within our tribe forever. In the end, the Cyberdogs were all dead, and Jean Reader, a mere foster at the time, was put in charge. God damn it, explained Jane to Ben's bewilderment. Did I say something wrong? It's a lot. It's always a lot with you guys. 1 minute, I'm learning about how drones could protect cairns, and now there's an entire secret war that tore through a tribe. Garou history, throughout time, has always been momentous, he agreed. Okay, I'm sorry. Go on, please. Is there anything else I should know? To many Garou, humanity is a problem, and sure, the worm seeks to corrupt the world through them. But are they not of Gaia too? Are we not of them? What's the best approach here, you tell me? Murder them all? Wouldn't the worm love that? As an expressway straight into our souls. And what then? We Garou are born of wolves and humans. What good would cutting off one side of ourselves do? Ignoring a problem and hiding in the forest like so many do? How's that gonna help this particular problem? No. Most other tribes, they just kind of dip their toes in cities. They help, sure, and they have their own things to do, but for the most part, they complain and are happy letting us do all the heavy lifting of fixing that particular problem in the only way that makes sense. Only we take an active part in human lives, play the corporate game, get some kinfolks in courtrooms, and try to steer humanity towards a better path, through means that can actually make a difference. I did not stop him because I may not have liked the verbiage, but he was making a decent amount of sense. Still, I was damn happy Gloria stayed behind with roiling laughter. Look, he continued, I'm not saying the other tribes are wrong. We all play to our strengths, but we damn sure would get a lot more done if they spent less time pointing fingers at us and calling us weaver lovers, and more time working with us. Besides, isn't it a little hypocritical, the whole hentai-weaver thing? How so? I asked. I mean, the Striders have always been friendlier than most tribes, but I'm thinking about those that hate us for embracing the future and technology while at the same time using fully automatic guns in battle, you know? Where do they think these things come from? Even swords and bows. Listen, in the early days, a Silverfang pack assigned a pack of werewolves with the job of looking over humans. They became the first glasswalkers. What do you think happened? We came in to watch over them, and sure, they made mistakes, but at the end of the day, they taught us. We saw they were using tools. Neat! We learned how, and brought that knowledge back to other Garou. We saw them use bows and arrows, and we thought, holy hell, that's gonna come in handy. What a revolution. To this day, many still use fetish weapons, all of which, and I mean all of which, used to be the cutting edge of technology back in the day, all created by humans and adopted by Garou. But now, they have the audacity to pretend like they don't use the tools of the Weaver to fight the worm. Fuck that, we use them. Every day, all of us. Claws are well and good, but they won't stop a megacorp from buying lands and ruining it. But monkey wrenching might. We have commando squads of Garou ready to infiltrate, sabotage, and plant whatever needs infiltrating, sabotaging, or planting. And you know, failing that, buying the lands first works. Those are things you can't do from outside the system. You have to be part of it and understand it. That's a lot to think about, said Jane. But all that sounds awfully Hamid-centric. What do your lupus think of all that? Wait, does Cockroach even choose lupus? Sure he does. With us, it tends to be a family thing. Few wolves in the wild are born with a dire need to watch the latest TV shows, fire a gun, or become lawyers. But all tribes need to keep their wolf sides, and Cockroach knows this. So the few wolves we do have usually are direct descendants of one of us, often born in a controlled environment, like a zoo, or raised in one of our apartments. We tend to take real good care of them because they are rare and precious. We take steps to make sure they have a place among us. There's even one we work with sometimes here called Linux. He's not here now. I hear he's deep in the Umbra on a search and rescue mission, but he lives with his packmate in an apartment and fancies himself as a professor of humanity. In his own way, he studies human behavior in the way we might study wolves in the wild. Finds us infinitely fascinating. His pack specializes in stealth and infiltration, you know, monkey wrenching. They slip into buildings to steal documents or plant bugs on computer systems. See, thinking Lupus can't be of help to us is just plain wrong. He does not need to read or analyze the documents to take them if he knows where they are. He doesn't need to know how to use computers to plug a USB key or hide something in a server room. then lost focus for a second, seemingly listening to the headphones in his ear. They're ready for you now. Please follow me. This has been A Rite to Remember, Season 2, Episode 8, a series of lore videos for Legacy Werewolf the Apocalypse presented through an immersive narrative. The Glasswalker tribe is no stranger to the tonal backlash that often occurs between editions. Sometimes an edition switches focus, or a tribe gets retconned to do something less problematic. In the Walker's case, the big tonal backlash is in regards to their relationship to the Weaver. The tribe has always been the targets of rumors, finger-pointing, derision, or even downright hatred from the other Garou for their suspiciously close relationship to the Weaver when they really should be revering Gaia, and Gaia alone. In the case of the first edition Glasswalker, this attitude was at least somewhat warranted. One line of the book flat out says the Weaver is their friend, in flat out contradiction to just about everything else ever written about the Weaver and its minions. One can deal with Weaver spirits, but they will never be anyone's friends. They need feelings instead of cold pragmatism for that. No more than 3 years later, the Book of the Weaver would, and indeed all 3 Triad books of that era, make it quite clear that all members of the Triad are dangerous, regardless. The Glasswalker of First Edition came before all of those gray areas were explored and the Triad was properly fleshed out. Perhaps it is no surprise the writers went in with a cool take. What if werewolves, but of the Weaver? Cool take, nothing wrong with it per se, but just be aware that second and revised era books posited the Weaver as a serious villain, on par with the Worm, and that means course-correcting the Glasswalker accordingly in their revised tribe book. They were now clearly reverent of Gaia, and they cleansed themselves of the elements which were too Weaver-tainted, some of which they solved with an internal war, and the rest got retconned. Both versions work. Just be aware of the switch, and remember your understanding of the tribe might be vastly different depending on which edition you vibe with. Both are correct. Find middle ground everyone is happy with, and have fun. Now, if we're going to talk about the Walkers, we need to talk about the Machine. The Machine is the incarnate of technological advancement, shaped like a man, which is made of tools. It is a powerful spirit, simultaneously born of human dreams and shaping human evolution as he dreams of them. The big thing about it is that it is not self-aware yet. It is still sleeping. In the first edition tribe book, it is constantly mentioned, reverently, throughout the history of the tribe section. The unreliable narrator practically worships him, and an entire faction within the tribe is dedicated to freeing him from humans. By contrast, in the revised tribe book, he is relegated to a sidebar, and the faction dedicated to him is described more or less as, "There's no proof they ever existed." That's not to say the Machine has been retconned entirely out of existence. The sidebar does acknowledge its existence, it merely serves a different role. With the Glasswalkers much more focused on worshipping Gaia instead of the Weaver in their cohorts, it wouldn't have made sense to keep the Machine on such a high pedestal. Therefore, it was used as a setup to a mystery instead. A sort of who or what is this Machine entity? Is it awake yet? Is it a threat? Who? Mystery. At least, that's what I think. The Book of the Weaver, a second edition book published between the 2 Glasswalker tribe books, goes into a similar direction, stating it is not yet at the Celestine level, strongest of spirits, but is growing in power extremely fast. It posits that Glasswalker Thurges are concerned at the possibility that it might pose a threat to Gaia herself should it ever reach Celestine status and wake up, while some among them believe it to be more likely to become a powerful ally. In other words, it's now a story hook for storytellers to do with as they will. Instead of spending half its page count on the Machine, the revised era tribe book spends half its page count talking about the Boli Zuhitsi, a Chinese offshoot of the Glasswalker tribe that is so different and which evolved independently from the Glasswalker. The book insists they might as well be a different tribe entirely, even if they happen to follow Cockroach as well. It's a lot of words that could have fleshed out the Glasswalker, and yet not enough for me to really do anything with the Boli Zuhitze. Was that really necessary? Offshoots like this are interesting for various reasons. Some, like the Sibarak, add a layer of mystery to stories set in Russia, while the African Kucha and Kudu bring new ideas to the table in the context of the faction of African shapeshifters called the Ahadi. But on the other hand, if it's a super localized and completely different branch of the tribe, then it isn't representative of said tribe, now is it? I can't count the number of times I'd be discussing a tribe only to have someone bringing a damn offshoot to muddle the conversation and confuse everyone who'd never even heard of them. If we're talking about the Red Talons, we are not talking about the Kucha and Kudu. We are just not, and vice versa. Even then, look, even the book about Asian shapeshifters, called Ngeokai, only had about 2 lines about the Boli Zuhitze. It didn't even consider them as of the East. It relegated them to shifters of the West and spent the rest of the book talking about glasswalkers instead. I mean, if you're not going to do with the damn concept, why are you wasting page count? Drop the random offshoots, please. Make these actual tribes. Flesh them out in their own books. And if they are regionally locked, then cover them in the regional book where they are actually relevant. And for Gaia's sake, actually do something with the ideas. Don't have books just throw the name around to each other without ever digging in. It's a role-playing game, not hot potato. Another big difference between first and revised era glasswalkers is the concept of houses. In first edition, their septs had a person in charge called a Dawn. That's right. And under them, the glasswalkers were divided into houses. Functionally, that served pretty much the same role as sept stations, like Warder, for example. It didn't do much, it just complicated things, and it was ditched in revised editions, getting a vague mention of, oh yeah, we used to do that, and it didn't work, so older septs still do it, but it's not cool anymore. Then lists a bunch of reasons why the concept didn't work. I recommend not bothering, especially because of another thing you have to deal with over all of that. Camps. All tribes have camps. Think of them as mini-tribes within a tribe that are essentially just different ideologies or movements within a tribe. I haven't mentioned them yet because frankly there are a lot, and I feel it's much more important to understand the tribe itself. You already have breed, auspice, and tribe to create unique characters. Did we really also need camps? No. But here they actually do matter. The Glasswalker camps are more than just ideologies. They are actual political entities in the power dynamics within the tribe. I won't cover them because honestly they could be a video on their own, but if you want to delve into Glasswalkers for your game, you can find everything you need in either tribe books. Now, 5th edition Glasswalkers. The influence aspect was shifted over to the Bone Gnawers, so the walkers now focus on using technology to fight and build. It's a great take, but one that comes with a caveat. They swapped Cockroach for Spider, from whom they take the focus on building. His ban is that he forbids the Glasswalkers from destroying complex machinery, like cars and assembly lines. Switch itself is incredibly on the nose and brings up so many questions, but let's not even go there. With the tribe's love of humanity and Spider's love of building webs, it works. It's very cool. But on the other hand, the point of the tribe is to use what they build to fight, to destroy. And the entire premise of Werewolf 5th edition is that human greed is the problem that Garou must fight. In other words, fighting corporations and dismantling assembly lines. In other words, the point of the game is breaking this exact ban. It's not so bad because there's still lots they can do besides that. They can fight corporations on the legal front. They can still shoot Banes and Fummery with guns and spy with drones to expose a corrupt official. It's workable, but it's still very limited. All the more so because assembly lines and cars are the only two examples written in the book. The line is incredibly vague. Does that include computers? So no cyber attacks? And cameras? So no shooting it or breaking it to sneak in undetected? There's a wonderful idea somewhere in there, but it needs expanding on, or an alternate ban to really click. And really? Spider, come on!